Hello everyone, I'm going to go through 3 multiple choice questions about Lewis dot structures. My goal here is to help build the skill of working through these multiple choice questions in order for when students see these on a test. With that being said, let's jump into it. Number 1, when constructing a Lewis dot structure, which element is most likely to appear in the center of the molecule? So before I even look at the answers, what I like to do is I like to try to think of the answer myself. This helps me be confident that it's the answer. Sometimes when students work through questions, they might know the answer, but then they might second guess themselves because they're just not confident that they know the answer. So again, I'm not even looking at the answers. I'm just going to try to kind of reason through this myself. So again, we're talking about Lewis dot structures, and we're looking for a specific element. There are 118 elements. There's only 5 here, but it's saying which is most likely to be the center of the molecule. Well, we know when we have a molecule, I'm just going to put X's here for different molecules, or different elements. We know this center has to have the ability to bond with a lot of different elements. That's because, again, it's in the center, it's informing these bonds between other elements. And I know carbon is typically seen there because carbon has 4 valence electrons. These little circles represent the valence electrons, and since that it only has 4, it can bond like to form methane. It can form 4 different bonds with those hydrogen atoms. So looking through my answers, I see oxygen. Nope, oxygen has 6 valence electrons. It can only form 2 bonds with other elements. It's probably not oxygen. Hydrogen, definitely not. It only has 1 valence electron. Fluorine doesn't have the right, again, not fluorine. Carbon, that's the one I'm looking for. But let's check the last one just to make sure. Helium, definitely not. Helium only has 2, and it fills that octet rule even though it only has 2. So the answer here is D, carbon. Let's go over question number 2 now. Which of the following elements would form 2 bonds and have 2 lone pairs of electrons in a stable Lewis structure? So there's a lot of words that are in that question that can kind of confuse us, but let's go over them and try to break this down. The question is asking what element, so again, we're looking at elements, would form 2 bonds and have 2 lone pairs of electrons. So I'm just going to put like element X here. I don't know what it is, but the 2 bonds mean that it has 2 of these valence electrons that are just there. They could bond with other elements or other atoms. But it's also saying that it has 2 lone pairs of electrons. That means they have these electrons that are paired up that aren't going to form bonds with other elements. Now, this might seem complex, like, oh my gosh, like I don't know. Wait, all it's asking is which element has 6 valence electrons. That's it. If you look here, this is the atom that we're trying to build. Yeah, it has 6 valence electrons. That's all it's asking for. So this question has a lot of words that we don't really need to go in depth with. We just need to know what they mean. And that means that we're just looking for an element that has 6 valence electrons. And if we look down our list here, you can see nitrogen, not going to be nitrogen. Nitrogen has 5 valence electrons. Oxygen should be the correct answer, but let's go through the other answers to make sure we're right. Carbon. I know that carbon, we just talked about that in the last question. Carbon only has 4 valence electrons. Fluorine's not the answer. Fluorine has 7. I'm going off of memory, by the way. If you don't know these, your teacher might give you a periodic table, but and I also know that hydrogen only has 1 valence electron. So since oxygen has 6 valence electrons, it is the correct answer, and it is correct. Let's go over the last question now. When constructing the Lewis dot structure of carbon dioxide, CO2, why are 2 double bonds formed instead of 4 single bonds? So this question's again asking, why are there 2 double bonds instead of 4 single bonds? And before I even look at the answers, I'm looking at carbon dioxide. We have carbon, it's going to be double bonded to oxygen, and it's going to be double bonded to oxygen. So the reason why we have these double bonds between the oxygen atoms and the carbon atoms is because there's just not enough atoms to form 4 single bonds. Like if this was methane with 4 single bonds here, you would need a hydrogen at each one of these locations. We just don't have enough atoms to form those single bonds. So what happens is these bonds here, these double bonds between the carbon atom and the oxygen atoms, need to be double since we just don't have enough atoms. Now, with that being said, I still have to look at the answers. So let's see if we can figure this out. A, oxygen atoms cannot form single bonds. Wrong. They can definitely form single bonds. It's not A. B, carbon must satisfy the octet rule by forming 4 shared pairs of electrons. That sounds pretty good. Let's go through the other answers just to make sure. C, double bonds would allow carbon to achieve a full octet while minimizing the formal charges. I really didn't talk about the formal charges really at all. I don't think it's the answer. I'm going to scratch it out. D, 4 single bonds would make carbon exceed its octet rule. We talked about how methane's a perfect example of having 4 single bonds. So no, D is not the answer. Answer E, oxygen has too few valence electrons to share only 1 per atom. Nope, that's not the answer. Doesn't make sense. Answer here is B. Carbon must satisfy the octet rule by forming 4 shared pairs of electrons. Yes, it must have these double bonds here between the carbons and the oxygens.